I thought I was like really spontaneous and kind of like
not at all.
go on the whim and kind of go on my gut. But I find that I'm very calculated and like very prepared.
I'm so glad that you realize this about yourself.
Welcome to our show in-house podcast. I'm Jen Wound.
I am Toni.
And guess what? We are celebrating our 2-year anniversary.
Woo!
89. This episode will be maybe episode 89, which means we've done way over more than 150 hours of podcasting.
Wow.
Well, of preparation as well included in that.
Most of it was done by you.
Because you were pregnant.
Yeah,
because you were pregnant.
but still, I appreciate you. I always appreciate you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope that we're friends after this episode.
After this episode, but for many, many years.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess last year on our 1-year anniversary, we actually tapped into the sensories and to our audiences to ask what kind of questions they want to ask us. We're so used to being the interviewer that this time we have asked our listeners to ask us questions.
Mm-hmm.
So can I ask you the very first question?
You may.
So we always ask, what is our guest's spirit animal?
Mm-hmm.
So someone had actually asked us, what is your spirit animal? Meaning ours.
Okay. So I don't actually know. I just base it on what I've resonated with the most. And I had mentioned this to you earlier. Mm-hmm. I used to resonate with the spirit animal of a lion, mostly because I am very assertive. I would consider myself somebody that's very strong. I also don't have a problem making difficult decisions and not being liked. So apparently that is consistent with a lion. However, recently I have been resonating with swans. Started seeing them in my dreams. Don't know what they mean. Do you know what they mean?
I'm looking it up right now. Let's see here. Behavioral.
Behavior. It says intuitive on this one that I had looked up before. But, I mean, it could be fitting.
Swans famously mate for life.
Oh,
and typically bond even before they reach sexual maturity.
I mean, we're not talking about that. We're talking about spirit animals.
Oh, yes. Okay. Let's focus here. That just caught my eye. You will viciously attack anything that perceive as a threat, including humans.
Okay. You should all be afraid.
I don't know. I kind of find like swans are really pretty to look at, and I remember when I was a kid at Canada's Wonderland, I would be riding in the swan, and that would be like a really fun, joyful ride. But swans do attack people.
I didn't even know that.
It's like peacocks.
Okay, so this sounds different when I Google swan spirit animal. This sounds totally different than what you're talking about. What yours is
I'm on
probably
Wikipedia.
accurate.
Okay.
And I don't know if this is true for me, but it says, yeah, I don't think this is true. It says a swan is grace, beauty, love, trust, maybe, and loyalty. Trust and loyalty, yes.
Are you being an
inner beauty and
imposter right
self-love.
now?
Of what?
Well, you're saying it's not true, but it's Google is right. Google's always right.
I'm Googling swan spirit animal, not
Right.
just swan through Wikipedia. But anyhow, back to you.
Yeah.
What would you consider your spirit animal to be?
Okay, I've been asked this question. You may have asked me this. I'm not really sure who, but I've always said Gabrielle Reese. I know she's not an animal, but she is a beast.
Yeah, amazing
On the volleyball court.
Mm-hmm.
But if I was to pick an animal, I'd probably say bald eagle. And I've always said this for years, even when I was doing my discovery before the West One name came born. One of the questions is, what animal would I be? And I've always stuck to bald eagle, and I still feel like I'm a bald eagle.
I could see that because I think bald eagle is leadership, authority, larger vision, wisdom, competitive, which you certainly are, strong-willed. I like this part, new beginnings and
Hmm.
endurance. I think that that's
Yes.
very fitting.
Well, I recently took this test, self test online, self sabotage,
Oh,
and it
oh, the saboteurs.
yeah,
Oh,
saboteurs.
we should do an episode on that.
Oh, and my top two: overachiever and restless.
Okay, so mine
And
is overachiever and controller.
old.
But
Oh,
overachiever was so high,
right.
it was not
It
good.
just knocked it out of the park, and so and that's the thing. Overachiever is not.
It
It could be seen as a very negative, but positive and negative thing.
mm,
So, anyways, yeah, bald ego. Competitive. I'm definitely competitive with myself, I would
mhm.
say,
Mhm.
and I've I've always been the type of person to kind of stretch my limits, stretch my wings. I just don't like it clipped. And even with my story about leaving the corporate world of
Mhm.
pre-sales, working with the developer, I've always brought up the fact that I felt my wings were clipped, and I don't
Mhm.
that didn't really resonate now until now actually.
It's a good
That
thing though.
yeah.
The experiencing that pain was a good thing because you wouldn't have gone on the journey that
Mm-hmm.
you did.
No, I see that. Yeah.
And I think we're both similar in the way now that you're always going to go through ups and downs and some and challenges. And I think it's about finding creative solutions. And now I would imagine we both get excited in that challenging range because it means that at least you're challenging yourself and you're growing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something that you need to push through or flow through gently. Anyhow,
Thank you, Tony.
you are welcome.
What is a topic? Here's another question. What is a topic you want to discuss, but you're afraid it may be too controversial? So,
Are you asking me this? Are you sure you want
well,
to ask me this on the podcast?
someone asked us, so this is where we're going to be able to. I mean, we own this podcast, don't we?
We do.
Okay.
We do.
What I have mine.
You go first.
Okay, mine is. By the way, my guilty pleasure lately has been the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard.
Oh,
It's
no.
been such a
No.
toxic
No.
relationship and marriage that they had, and unfortunately broadcasted to the world.
Yeah.
Um, but it's
I have no
amazing
idea
how
about any of that. I would not give it, and it's okay. I would not give it a second of my time because
Mm.
I saw it come up in an advertisement or something somewhere. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, hell no.
Mm-hmm.
It's so negative and toxic. I don't even want to listen to it. So say more. Say
I
more.
guess for entertainment purposes, the narrative it's kind of leading into something that I want to talk about is the
Okay.
Me Too movement. So what my answer would be to this listener's
Too
question
controversial. Yeah. Yeah.
is the good news was last month Joe Biden just passed the COVID-19 Hate Crime Act,
Oh.
where he just signed off where they're going to build a little more awareness and in the terms of diversity and inclusion, and bringing more, I'd say, confronting the idea that there's an anti
Like a racism
Asian
element. Yeah.
racism
Okay.
issue. And
Okay.
so since COVID, there's been over 6,600 cases, reported cases. There's probably thousands more that has not been addressed and reported, where Asian Americans, Asian Canadians were confronted and were in the middle of an act of violence.
Yeah. I am aware of that. Even on Commercial Drive, there was some things that had happened down
Right.
there locally.
A lot, and 7-Eleven,
Yeah.
where someone was
That's
being
right.
kicked, like this elderly man was being pushed out the door. There was at Metrotown, there's been situations where people would be just innocently walking down the sidewalk and they get pushed down onto the street. So I really want to commend Oakwin, my brokerage, where they have just introduced a course in the Oakland University where they teach about diversity and inclusion.
Great.
So
It's needed. You have to lead with love. And so what you're talking about here, obviously it's an issue. But I think it expands even outside of, I mean, you and I are Asians, so of course it's going to hit home for us. But any act of violence against someone really would hit home for us because I think that we're leading from a place of love. I find these things unacceptable.
So is there
Yeah.
any other topics that you would have want to tackle but kind of find it
Controversial,
may be controversial. I think I
you know.
mentioned one and you said we're not sure if we're there yet.
It's not that. It's that I'm happy to speak freely about things that I personally believe in, but I wouldn't want it to blow back on you if it's controversial. Does that make sense? Because we're in this together. So I'll keep it very simple, and I will say, um, yeah, it has to do with people's freedoms.
Oh, the vaccination.
Not
Or
even vaccine. I just mean freedom in general. But yeah, you could relate it to those types of things. And it's funny because I find that if you're supporting something like freedom, now I know that some of you listening might be upset when I say this, and that's okay. That's okay. If you're talking about something like freedom, it's just about being free. It doesn't make me an anti vaxxer or making me say that other people are wrong. It's not about that. They're actually two completely different things. I find that in general, it is very difficult to navigate through, like, if you align with something like freedom, there are certain camps that would automatically label you as an anti something, but that's not the case. That's not the case at all. So that's all I'll say about that. What have you learned about yourself since starting this podcast?
that's a very good question. I think this came through discovery of how the style, your work style versus my work style. I didn't realize that I was like a very structured person. Like I thought I was like really spontaneous and kind of
No,
like
not at all.
go on the whim and kind of go on my gut. But I find that I'm very calculated and like very prepared.
I'm so glad that you realize this about yourself.
But okay, this is the thing. I do this every day with the developers. I'm strategizing for them. I'm like, millions of dollars are put in my hands to ensure that they're meeting stakeholder
Of
needs, and
course.
and so I feel like creating businesses and creating business plans and creating strategy is like I guess that's where I've been the most accomplished, and so it carries through in the rest of my work, and you have seen it in podcasting.
There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, this is the thing. Everybody has their own style. There's no one type of style that's going to work better than the others. I will say that in realizing very early that you like things done a specific way, there's nothing wrong with that. But that's also why sometimes I'll let you make that schedule because I know that you want it a certain way. So if I do it, you're going to change it anyhow because that is your thing. You like it a certain way. So I just let you do it.
There's been a few people, well, pretty much everybody, that says it's Jenny's way.
So the
But
funny
I don't
thing
say
is,
I don't
no.
say it's Jenny's way the highway. It's
Not in
I
a
just
selfish way, guys. We're just saying that she likes, no, it's true. She likes things done a certain way. I also like things done a certain way, but I know how, in this scenario, how important certain things are to you. So I'm happy to allow you to
go
do that.
with it.
That's fine.
And so what have you learned about yourself through this podcast?
What have I learned about myself? I have learned that, so I'm the exact opposite of you. What?
Yes.
I'm the exact opposite of you. I am intuitive and I'll just go off of my gut. And sometimes, well, so let's be clear. That's not always the case with clients. I do prepare. There is a rhyme and reason. And sometimes when I'm in it and navigating through, you can't actually follow the original plan that was set out. So you have to be able to shift right away. I learned that I need to rely on my intuition more. And it's never steered me wrong. We started the podcast when I was very pregnant.
Yes.
That was a really hard time. But it's an intuition thing too. It was, there were many times, as you know, where I would leave the hospital because I was in the hospital so much. It was difficult pregnancy and come straight to the podcast and then maybe have to go back.
Yep.
But when an opportunity presents itself, you have to say yes, or I want to say yes.
Made it work.
Yeah, we made it work. Good team.
So we have a question from Dave Zernhelt. He's been a past podcast.
Hi, Dave.
Podcast guest at Rate My Agent. He asked, "Who's your dream guest to interview and why?"
For me, oh, you're asking me. Hmm.
No, we're asking Dave.
Hmm.
Dave, where are you?
Dave, I haven't looked at these questions beforehand because we wanted to keep it real. I would love to interview, as I've mentioned to you before, Kate Northrup.
Mm-hmm.
We will reach out to her again because I feel as though she has a lot to offer our listeners. It really related to our last guest. You know how our last guest had mentioned doing, so it's all about the energies and not moving upstream. Like if you're trying to get to a certain place, it's a lot harder to do it against the current rather than with the current. She's very much about aligning joyful life and business and expansion
Mm-hmm.
and working with the current energies. So there's a lot of, maybe there's a bit of cosmic stuff in there too, but it's a more inclusive, holistic perspective, I think. And I think she'd be a great guest.
Awesome.
Yourself?
I'm gonna say Mark Zuckerberg.
Oh, that would be very interesting. I could see that too.
I think because I'm just so fascinated with this metaverse he's creating, all the platforms he's creating. He's a Harvard dropout, billionaire in his early 20s. Purchased WhatsApp, purchased Instagram, um, and I just really want to know more about how this metaverse is going to take us to a whole different level of connection and socializing, and how we're going to operate and perform.
I have no idea. It's just something so outside the box.
Right, and that's why I want to interview him.
Yeah, but I could see why you would want to have him
Because
on.
I kind of feel like is that like sixth dimension? Is that seventh dimension? He's got so much power in the data that he's collecting,
Oh yeah,
in the
absolutely.
studying our behaviors, our movements, manipulating me into watching
So
Johnny Depp episodes.
may I say something?
Yeah.
Because this relates back to the freedom aspect. Again, nothing political here, just saying freedom in general, which I have always aligned with since I was 5 years old and fighting for women's
Disclaimer.
rights. Okay. I was going to say that this is actually the reason why I am not really on social media at all. I like intimate, real connection. And I find, and there's nothing wrong with social media, everyone. I'm just saying that we've talked about this before. There's a certain persona that is portrayed on social. The reality is that we all go through ups and downs. And so I just have a hard time with only seeing one side of things. I like to see it all because that's what makes it real, and we're real people. Right? So we have to go through that. But I also don't enjoy the data mining. So I've never had an Apple Watch. I never will. I don't know how to, there's a fine balance too, right? Between technology, data mining, and all of these things.
Yeah.
But for me, that relates back to freedom. And I
Okay.
think my heart rate is my business.
Okay, Allison Bryan,
Yeah.
Oakland agent, thanks for putting in your 2 questions to us. So she asks, top things that you wish you implemented in your first year of business now that you have experience and with what you knew.
You go
then.
first.
Top things that you wish that I implemented. I would probably say, there are so many.
I know, right?
I think first and foremost is, the Keller Williams book,
The Red Book.
The $1 Million Real
Million
Estate
Dollar Real
Agent.
Estate. Mhm.
I would have applied the budget, the organizational, the
100%.
4 pillars way earlier on, especially the budget, because I find like I'm not really good with numbers.
You
I never
are.
really, am I?
You're
I don't
okay with-
know.
yeah, I think
I
you're
mean,
good at
I
it.
hire accountants to do all the work and
You're-
collate all my receipts, but really understanding and measuring like what is the right percentage to spend
Yes.
on the return on investment. So really understanding the analytics of that,
Yes.
and understanding like even just studying like digital media platforms and like the analytics of the returns of the dollar spend on that. So I get these reports from the experts and the third party companies that I hire. But do I really, really know that it's working? I'm relying on them that if that dollar amount goes down and I'm increasing leads,
Yes.
then it's working.
Yes.
But what does that really mean on a whole, like on a bigger picture?
These are good points for sure. I get that. I get that. I think for me, it would be starting with the CRM right away. I did it after.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine to do it after, but best to just keep track of everything properly right when it happens, because eventually your business, if it'll explode and it'll be harder to dedicate that time to have everything the way that you want. And I also would have to agree with you about the numbers. So I'm talking about net profitability. I would look at those numbers more often as well.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to look at them every single month, but realistically, I only do it once a quarter.
Mm-hmm. Which is, I think that's fine. I
Yeah.
think that's, and also I feel like every quarter it all depends on like the macroeconomics,
Yes.
seasons.
Yes.
It's all affected into
So
all that.
still room for improvement,
Yeah.
Toni.
What are irreplaceable safety measures you have put in place as a woman working independently in the industry? Allison, this is a really, really good question.
This relates back to one of our very first episodes.
Mm-hmm. Meredith.
Yes, with Meredith. And oh, it's so important. It's so important. For me, I actually never meet with a new client in private because you don't know them. I actually will not meet with anybody unless I've had a phone conversation with them. We deal with a lot of people, Jenny, right? So I can generally tell now, even from the telephone, if I would meet with this person or not. But I think that that's a learned skill. And we're also intuitive. So public places, I think, are number one, even in your office, so that other people could be there at the same time. That's probably the best place to meet a new client.
Good idea. And something simple as enabling Find My iPhone on
for
the app on your
sure.
phone. I think that's even in general if you lose your phone. What I have been doing kind of regularly, probably pisses some agents off, is
Do you message them?
no, deleting information and listing photos once it's sold.
That's a good
like
idea,
once it's
actually.
sold.
Yeah.
I know we're not supposed to because it will provide value for agents who are
Yeah, but
doing
there's personal
CMAs.
information there.
But absolutely, I'm deleting it for the reason that it's protecting my seller or the owner that's still living in the home, and you know, whether they have valuables or whether, you know, there's photos of their personal belongings
Yes.
in those photos. So that's the reason why I delete
I
listing
actually
photos.
don't have a problem with that. And here's why, too. Because whenever you report a sale, it's sold, but actually the information stays up there forever. It
Yes,
can
yeah.
literally pull from other sites. So I get where you're coming from. It's not a bad idea.
So what I recommend is, what the board recommends, at least have at least one exterior photo
Sure,
up
of
as
course.
well. So
Yeah.
okay. Alicia Chung. Oh, my client from Con West. Thanks, Alicia, for asking this question. What would you tell yourself 2 years ago knowing what you know now?
Well, 2 years ago was very interesting.
2 years ago.
I would tell myself not to be afraid and that everything was going to work out. And I still might have to tell myself that from time to time because I'm human.
Yeah.
Yourself?
The last 2 years, I have grown a lot. We've created this podcast. I started the brokerage.
Lots of great
I
relationships
just feel like
too. Oh, so good.
Although it may have held back some companies, and you know, unfortunately, some companies may have closed down. I kind of felt like I persevered while many probably went through a lot of mental issues, and again, just through decades and a very bad separation.
Yeah.
That just, I was like, I can take anything on after that.
Yes, you can. We all can. We have to realize that we have personal power. Oh, next one, Adam Graham. Also
Hi,
Oakland agent.
Adam.
Hi, Adam. Oh, it's a good question. Where would you buy right now if you had a $1 million budget?
I'm going to say invest in the States
Okay.
because the property values here, the rent cannot cover unless you're putting a significant amount of down payment, which I feel like again, the idea of freedom. You're
There's
not
an
put,
opportunity
yeah,
cost for
not
that
having
payment.
to put down 30 to 50% down. You can't justify having positive cash flow.
Hmm.
So I think investing in the States, and if personally, I would obviously invest in California, as
I
I
know
always
you
talk about.
would.
But what I heard, the hot markets are Arizona, Texas,
Yes.
Florida. So yeah, looking into that as well for
It's a
cross country
Are you gonna?
investing.
Did you buy in California yet? When you do, you have to tell our listeners.
Yeah, but then they're going to visit. No,
No,
I'll tell
you don't need to
you
tell
so
them
you
where
can
it is.
visit.
Okay,
But
I'll visit
yeah.
you. Um, okay, I love this question because I would agree with you, Jenny, that there are a lot of markets outside of British Columbia that are great markets, and it's a diversified. It would allow for a diversified portfolio. Um, I would say though, to answer this question, if it was a $1 million budget within BC,
Mm-hmm.
just to keep it a bit more local, I would answer it in the way that I'd probably buy in Hope or further out
Mm.
because the real estate is cheaper. There's going to be growth. There's already growth going out that way. If you look at Chilliwack and Cultus Lake area, insane prices. And I think that the smaller towns, maybe there used to be transitionary places, just stopovers for people
Mm-hmm.
to get to their destinations. There's going to be more growth in those areas, so I would invest there or
Yeah,
on the island.
I don't know anything about Hope besides getting gas
But this is exactly
before
it,
I
right? So
get
think
into the
about it.
city. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the next place.
Well, thank you guys for joining us on our 2-year episode. Once again, if you enjoy our episodes, we'd love to hear from you.
Can I say one thing before we wrap up?
Yeah.
We've had a lot of awesome guests on, obviously this entire year and the first year, but I never publicly thanked all of you who had reached out to me directly when it was in January, February, March, April, when my
Yeah.
dad was really sick, and I had a lot of you message me privately or reach out by email. And I just wanted to say thank you so much. I really, 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 really appreciate it. And this community with Jenny means so much to me. So thank you.
Thanks, Tony. We so appreciate you guys listening, and without you guys encouraging us, mentioning us when we're bumping into showings, and
Mhm.
we appreciate your feedback, and we appreciate that you're kind of passing on this information. The words of our words of wisdom is. I feel like I'm, of service, and
Yes.
I'm. There's a reason why we're doing this is because we want to educate and we want to share our knowledge with you guys.
Yeah. And I also want to learn from all of you. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for everything.
So thanks, guys.
Thank you.